Look up
One,
the city
two of the
attorney
pots.
tomorrow.
She
Just
wants
see what she
$50,
thinks.
just like that.
It does, it does.
Is it, yeah, there we go.
We'll
Now I
go
can hear.
after, go after nuisance and what we did before.
Can you hear me?
And then Chase's big
Do I need to
one,
put it up more?
and she had like 0-0, it wound up being tied at the end of the game. And then in the overtime,
better?
I would have won.
Is that better?
So I said,
You
I
said
have to
yes.
give it to her, because it was the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So, cost me another 25.
We need to talk.
Higher still. I had a high wall to go, I was afraid of it.
They said they had a hard time hearing you.
I was coughing so bad last week. Is that better?
We okay with everybody, Casey?
Thank you, Patty.
We okay with everybody? Very good. And we'll open this meeting with a public hearing is on the agenda. And this is in reference to consider a variance request by Jennifer Traver to allow the property located at 412 Reagan Street to be replatted, making the single lot into two lots, with one of the lots being 46.5 foot, which is 23.5 foot less than the required 70-foot width. And Mrs. Traver, would you like to come up and make a opening statement for us, if you don't mind? That way we can ask you some questions. And if you'll introduce yourself, please.
I'm Jennifer Traver, here with my parents, Larry and Barb Brown. And we purchased Reagan Street, and we totally gutted both houses. And the small cottage, which we're hoping to subdivide, we will probably sell. It's been completely gutted, completely redone. It's beautiful. Our intent is to provide housing of something that would be affordable, possibly for a single person. And I know there's not a lot available in town that's in wonderful condition that could be, like I said, somewhat affordable. I envision it a teacher, or it's really small, so I think it really could only accommodate a single person. I guess a couple could probably make it work, but it's definitely small. And I understand, obviously, there's a possibility that y'all would deny it, but I think it could be a really great option for housing for somebody.
Okay. Thank you very much. We may call you back up once we get into it. And if you don't mind, appreciate that very much. I'll call this meeting to order. I have 5:34, and if we will stand up for invocation, John Plossill will say that, please, and then I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, we give you thanks for all the blessings that you give us. We give you thanks for the much-needed rain that you gave us this last week. We ask that you lead the commissioners here to do the best that they can for our city. We ask that you bless us all. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I
pledge
pledge allegiance to thee,
Texas,
One state, under God,
one and indivisible. Thank you very much. We'll first open for just general public comments. If you happen to come in and are going to speak on a particular item, we ask that you sign the list at the back. If you just have a general comment in general, you can make that now. Does anybody request to make just a public comment? Okay, I'll take that sign as that we don't have anyone that does. So we will move on to item number 1, is discussion and action. It's in reference to the Jennifer Traver variance request at 412 Reagan Street to divide it actually into 3 lots. And commissioners, if you'll look at your exhibits there, she has actually, paid for the variance request. There's like a site plan That's on page 4. And she's wanting to divide that up into 3 tracks, 2 tracks. Okay? Chad, would you like to come up and make a comment on this? And then the normal process is has already been conducted by Ms. Allen as reference to sending out letters. We got those back. I think there was about 6 of them, and we'll look at those in a minute too. But we'd like to see what process you've been involved in and what your recommendation is.
So Jennifer did do all the necessary things, everything that I asked for her to do. She provided me with that. You can see on your paperwork there that if they split that up, that they are meeting all the setback requirements, except for there's some, like a shed and a concrete slab that's there that will be removed if this variance is granted to them. I do think that we are in need of some housing for teachers and things like that, but didn't know for sure if it meets that unique and unusual hardship qualification that a variance request would. So that's for y'all to decide and not me. So that's good. But that's pretty much all that I have for that.
So this is being divided into 2 tracks, correct?
Yes.
We have where the 1-story house is up front, and then we have the middle portion that has a 1-story wood house, and then we have the back portion. So which would be cut out of those 3 portions there?
Okay, so let me look at it again. So it was divided once before, a while back, and they sold that, the one part that is on Martin Street, off of Martin Street. That part has been cut off already. So you're just looking at these 2 properties here. This is what it is now, and she's wanting to cut this one off and make this big one into 2. So the only problem with it is that this is 46.5 feet, so it's not quite as wide as what it would need to be. It's supposed to be 70 feet wide.
Correct.
Chad, is that where the house is located at right now, that little house? The 4112 Reagan?
What is it? Say that again?
Is that the lot where the 4112 Reagan house is located?
This one, yes.
Yes, and she's wanting to divide that lot in half?
So the lot now has 2 houses. It has this bigger house on it and then the smaller house. And they're wanting to split it so the smaller house will be on a lot by itself and then the bigger house will be on a lot by itself.
Oh, okay.
How do they have access?
Yeah, that's what I was going.
I mean, they have roadway frontage and then there's a driveway there.
Yeah, each house has a drive-in, right?
Yeah.
Each house has a, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I totally misunderstood this. I thought we were trying to cut that one lot in half. So actually, she's just trying to define the lines between both houses, right?
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes a big difference.
Right.
And so that wood building then, where the line goes in,
It's a shed, garage, sort of. The wood is not in great shape already. I mean, it's not insulated in any way. It's just framed up and on a slab. So the property line would go down it, so that would have to come down.
okay.
And the slab would come up also?
It would have to.
Yeah.
Yes, and
The-
one thing I would add is both houses are already on separate meters. So electric and water are already.
Or this was going to ask.
And how large is that house on this lot?
The smaller one is, it's around 500 square feet. It's small, it's a full 1-bedroom, 1-bath, full kitchen. Yeah, but very cute, but that's why I say it would be great for one person. It would be a stretch. A couple could do it.
But these homes have been there for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, all she's doing is separating the, yeah, she's just separating the properties from each home.
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask that when any of the audience speaks, they come to the microphone?
Please.
Because we're airing this live, so people that are listening.
Yeah, go ahead and step up to the mic. I don't think they're finished asking you questions.
Yes.
And you can look at this later, you know, and watch yourself
Oh,
on,
that's okay.
yeah, on the video. So I'm trying to understand, is your intent to sell off one of those?
Yes.
So you're doing it for monetary reasons, more than anything?
Yes, we intended to keep both, but just for financial reasons, we would like to let go of the small cottage and just retain the three-bedroom house.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, is this a B and B?
It is currently, yes.
Okay, okay. And what is it called?
It is called the cottage,
The cottage, okay.
yes.
Okay, so if you sold that off, then somebody would have to come in. John, what's the minimum size house, square footage on a lot?
900, 950.
So this is substantially less for a house. And they would be limited on how much they could add on because of the lot size.
Well, the lot is actually very deep, so you could very easily go back, you just couldn't go wider.
Correct. That covered area, that's just like a pavilion, just like a carport or something?
That is down.
It's not there anymore?
Yes, it's not there anymore.
Okay. Would it be feasible, I mean, this is your personal intent, I guess, would it be feasible for you to remodel that second property and rent it out as a B and B? Or just as a rent property?
Which one, the other home?
The one in the center there, the smaller
No.
home?
I'm sorry, I'm not
That's what she's doing
following.
now.
The smaller
That's what she's
home
doing
is
now.
the remodeled one, is the cottage.
Okay, the one that on the larger lot?
The one on the larger lot, we have no intent
Okay,
of
that's the
doing
one
as
that
a B&B.
is in ill
And it's-
repair.
It,
Okay,
it is in, we've done a lot of work on that home yet also, but it's not complete.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the one that's in the middle?
No.
Or the one on-
There
next
is
to
no
the-
house in the middle. What sits in the
Well,
back in the middle?
the reason I say the middle, I drove down Reagan Street to see, because I couldn't understand this variance very well. And I wanted to see physically myself.
Good, yeah.
And there in the corner is the little house, there are houses that have been there forever. And in the corner is that one little house, which is 412. That's what this variance is
Yes.
for. And it's at the edge of it's like a corner lot right there.
Well, that corner is a separate lot. That does not go with the cottage.
And it's not included in here either.
this one here is not
Right,
is already a separate lot.
right.
In the, correct, yes.
So the corner lot that you're looking at is this one.
Mhm.
So when you drove by and you thought that this one was all one lot?
Yes.
It's not.
Okay.
So this one's somebody else's, so y'all are just looking at.
Separating the
these
two houses.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
So the covered area is, no longer exists, and the wood building would have to be taken down.
Correct.
Mayor, and looking through the letters that we got back from the citizens, the only one that opposed was one individual, and the concern was the parking, but each one of those homes
It's a-
have a drive-in. So I don't see that
Plus,
would
it's-
even be a parking
It's already being
problem.
used as a B and B, so
Yeah.
that parking is, you're gonna have the parking no matter what.
Yes, you would have a long driveway.
There's that house that she's using for the B and B now. It's a craftsman style home. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know what you would, I don't think you would consider it craftsman, just traditional.
So, Chad, what were so on the subdivision that Wartenbach was
That's not what
talking
it looks
about?
like.
I know he was saying, in order to make
That's
it
not what
work,
it
he had
looks
to
like.
have a variance of some sort.
That's just what pulled up
And
under
were they
412
talking about
mark.
50 foot,
That's
or
not
do you
it.
remember,
412, Reagan.
or were you part of those discussions with him, or?
Yeah, Jennifer, this is not it. I mean, this does not look like what I saw today.
I can show you a good picture.
Would you like
Absolutely.
Have
me?
you got
That'd be
one?
great. Thank
Yeah.
you. I'm sorry, Michael. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's not it.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I was asking about the thing that Bortenbach was working on and asking for, you know,
Smaller lot.
variances in order to make that subdivision thing work. What was the size of that? Do you remember taking it from 70 to, was it 50 or
Yes, I think they were like 50 by 150,
50 by 150?
Okay.
7,500.
That's the one that's in the corner, right?
This is the corner lot over here, and this is the little house.
Right.
And then it's a driveway here, and then it's the other house.
Right.
Within a driveway on, and
Right.
carport on the other side.
Right. I think the mayor wanted to see that.
In the future, we're going to try to have some photos where we can put them up on the screen where everybody's looking at the
This
same
is just the
thing.
front of the cottage, it's not, it doesn't zoom out.
Okay, so that I had, is that the one that's Neil Repair? Or is that not even
No,
it?
That's not
Okay.
it.
That's probably in Mason, Ohio.
Yes.
Would you like me to look up when we bought it, the old listing, and it can show you both houses? I mean, it doesn't look like that anymore.
If it's possible, if you don't mind. You get your question answered?
Yeah, I think.
The minimum is 7,500 now, and we were going to reduce that somewhat
We're gonna reduce it to 5,000.
to 5,000.
It's just like the
50 by-
pod, so in our ordinance, there is
50
a
by
pod
100.
where it does that, and it reduces the housing,
What the main house
I think, to
looks
700 square feet.
Now it has a
I
new
believe.
roof.
Smaller.
And that
So
one's,
that one,
Kinda
like
that
the-
one is.
Chad, what's
This one.
the size lots that we've got
Yes.
over there on Rank? With the
that's
two
the
stories
main
are being
house.
built on?
That was what it used to look like. The
Mhm.
You wanna
living
come
one.
up here so they can hear you?
Wonder if there's an aerial. And we did move carport around and
I
stuff.
think
so
they're
it's not
bigger
the
than
same.
required, 'cause I think they go deeper, but I can't remember offhand exactly what.
I knew they were big, but I just didn't know if it was how wide they were, 'cause they look like they're
Yeah,
pretty
they're,
tight.
they're 70 foot wide,
They're 70?
so, but I think they're deeper than what
Yeah,
is required
yeah,
for the square footage.
Okay.
As far as
okay.
I think we've got a handle on it. I mean, this would, if we went to an R3, which is, I don't know where Nancy went to, but P and Z's working on this recommended R3, which would be a smaller lot, which would go down to 5,000. This still, I don't think would meet it.
This one would be, would be 5,517 square feet.
This one would be, but the frontage would be somewhat narrow.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Traver?
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
I think she's got,
Any discussion?
I feel like she's got room for driveway, room for big people off the street. Lord knows we need the small housing. I don't have a problem myself.
Because the purpose of it is to separate the two lots. I don't have a problem with it either.
I always look at what we'll be faced with down the road, and that is, what is the unique situation that somebody else won't come in here with and going, mine's 70 feet wide too, how can you deny me if you approve this one that's out of regulation? That's where I always run into the trouble, and that is,
Setting a
I'm setting a
precedent.
precedent from this point on, that anything coming in at 71, it's a hard argument.
But I think each case is unique, Rayburn, because her case is that she's trying to separate two residents here. or
That are already
two
there,
buildings.
yeah.
Yeah, that are already, that have been there forever. And now she's trying to,
I'm not denying that it makes sense. I'm not denying the logic behind it.
But it
But
goes
there
back
is
to
a-
that
we do-
unique and hardship.
We do have regulations in the books right now.
Right.
This is requirements. Once we do this, we open up the door for everybody to come through with a unique, in their opinion, perhaps, a unique situation that this should be granted for. I don't have any I don't have any real I don't have any qualms really agreeing with what your concerns are. My issue is, are we opening the door up for, we've had conversations in here before about people wanting, we all agree that we need affordable housing. And we need them for teachers, and we need them for cooks and bottle washers, and we need them for everybody. But does that mean that everybody that has a lot that's the width of these two can cut off at 70 and put a residence on it and sell that? That's where I'm having a difficult time, is where I don't know. I don't want to open up the can of worms that all of a sudden we can't deny anybody else because we've set the precedent, that's all.
Chad, what's the setback on the north side of that one-story house there in the middle for the property line?
It's 5 foot.
5 foot?
Yeah, that's, meets the setback.
That's,
So that's another, there's multiple infractions of our rules at this point.
no, 5 foot is a requirement.
It meets it.
So it is 5 foot?
Yes, on the sides.
And that's from the eave of the house or the wall of the house?
I don't guess it says, I think it's the foundation of the house. I'm not sure.
It is.
Yeah, okay.
I will move to accept the variance for the Travers property at 412 Reagan Street to be replatted into a single lot into the 2 lots.
I will second that.
We have a motion that that the commission approves the variance there at 412 Reagan Street, and seconded by Commissioner Velez.
I just want to make a point to Commissioner Rayburn, is that we still are a small community. And I realize that there are some cases that'll come before us that, are going to be hard to decide, but we still are a small community.
My biggest thing is the fact that there's already 2 structures there. And if this was somebody that was willing to come in and build a structure, that would be a different story. But these were 2 structures that were already there, so, dividing those out, you're not having any additional traffic, you're not having any additional problems there. Only thing you're getting rid of is an old shed, which actually improves the looks of the place, of the town. So I feel like we're in good shape as far as that. I will say it's really sad when being a future or a past educator that we say that we need housing for teachers and bottle washers at the same time. It kind of makes teachers look like they don't make much money, but just my own beef there. But it's sad that we are having to find really cheap housing to be able to get teachers to come. So.
Well, I remember a few months ago, we heard a variance from Mr. Langberg over on the north side of town. I think the frontage was on Live Oak possibly. And he had 2 structures on that property. And when he divided that in half, he got below our standards. And that was one of the reasons that we declined on that, denied it. The other reason was that we did not see it a hardship. And his reasoning for doing that was for he could sell both properties. He felt like he'd make more money. Now, he ended up selling the property to his original buyer, the whole property.
You're
I
talking
agree
about
with-
Mr. Jordan?
I'm sorry,
Are you talking about Mr. Jordan? Not Lindbergh?
was it Mr. Jordan?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was Mr. Jordan. And remember that in that other lot, he had the meter, the utilities for that lot was right there. He had it was not actually on the property line, if you recall that.
Right.
That was an issue too.
I just think we open ourselves up if we start doing variances that don't meet our standards, then where do we stop? And I would like to accommodate Mrs. Trevor, but I will not be in favor of it. Any further discussion?
Well, Mayor, we can take a vote.
Yeah, call for
I
vote.
got one more question if we're good. What is the defined unique and unusual hardship that we are taking into account today that would allow this to be granted? What is that? We
Somebody have
define-
an answer?
Sir?
Does someone have an answer?
As far as an unusual,
Yeah.
It's not unusual to want, to want to divide your property. I don't know, I can't think of a
I asked that question.
hardship per se, but other than the fact that financial hardship, that'd be it.
I asked that question because in 2 months or 2 years from now, when somebody comes in, we're going to say, were you granted? And I'll go,
I just
I just
personally,
don't know what that hardship is that we are, I mean, we said we need to have to have that unique and unusual hardship. If it granted one of those, which we allow, that if it has one of those, then we're allowed to approve that. But I'm trying to figure out what it is that's unique and an unusual hardship for this piece of property. That's all I'm asking for. It's just, I don't deny everything you said at all. I don't even want to, of course I know we're a small city.
And if you recall, also on that particular case that you brought up, Mayor, we had numerous people here present that were in opposition to that particular one also. And that, to me, that makes a difference. If you can get along with your neighbors and you're in a neighborhood that supports you, I think that's what makes
Yeah,
it
this
to
one, we
be
had
about.
2 in favor, 1 opposed, and 3 no opposition on it. So we had 6 people respond. And how many letters were sent out?
a bunch. Yeah.
21, yeah.
How many?
As-
21 letters, so we had a lot of people that didn't respond.
As far as the city, personally, I'd rather us be drawing income from someone that's living in the house, paying utilities all the time, as opposed to, a B&B that, gonna be rented out 2 weekends a month, at best. So, I mean, the city's making more money off of it.
Further discussion? Okay, we'll take it to a vote and raise your right hand. All those in favor of allowing the variance on the property at 412 Reagan by splitting it into 2 lots, raise your right hand. All those opposed, raise your right hand. It's denied 3-2. Thank you for coming in. Okay, we are back on our animal control ordinance. And we have, Patty supplied us more information this time around. We've got Misty Martin coming in and Nancy Herda coming in to help us. They've been reviewing the comments. And I think as we go through this, was your intent, Ms. Herda, to tell us when there's comments in a particular section? I think everybody's had a chance to look at them. Your comments is in your packet, but she'll bring those up as we get them. If it suits the commission, let's just start at the beginning and look and just kind of walk through some of this. This particular copy has notes out to the right side, and those notes, I'll just see if you can read yours. Yeah, and those notes are from our attorney, Mrs. Trevino. And she's made notes on several of these. We did not have access to this information last time, and so this may help us also discern some corrections that we may want to make as well. And I do want to thank those that made comments in writing or verbally the last time we met. We had some really good comments in writing from 2 of our rescue organizations, and we really appreciated hearing their viewpoints and really made sense to include quite a few of those, I think, if we opt to. But let's start on our definitions. We'll work our way down, and we'll move a little faster through this first half that we had worked on some last time. And Patty, did you have a comment or something you wanted to say? Okay, I'm sorry, I misread your body language there. I thought you were wanting to say something. So, but anyhow, we'll kind of walk through, look at the attorney's comments, and we can.
Mayor, could the print have been any smaller?
We could work that out next time, about half that size, about a number 6. It's difficult with this when you put it in the notes, that reduces the print. And that's the reason we didn't have the notes last time. Patty wanted to leave it large enough. If you have your notes from last time, or if you want to borrow mine, where you have the full size, you're welcome to do that. But We'll just go through a page. This time we'll use the page numbers that are in the packet, which is 21 is the first page on it. And any comments on that first page?
Actually, I do. Under Animal Control Authority Officer, I think it's really important that we list the ACO credentials because we have some very qualified ACOs employed for the city. That way that we can be reminded that we have some very qualified people taking care of our animal control department.
Okay?
And I think it's addressed further down in the ordinance.
That was a suggestion there to disregard. The thing that I had, was mentioned in some of the comments letters we had, where it says animals means a live vertebrate creature, domestic or wild, that we put non-human, just to be grammatically correct, I guess, because
Yes,
we
that
would
was-
fit in that category as well. So
That was discussed in
I think that might be a good thing to
P&Z.
add there.
Sir, are you still on page 21?
Yes, ma'am?
Under
Under
animal.
animal, where it says
Okay.
animals definition,
Okay, that was addressed somewhere else too, right?
just add non-human,
Okay.
if we can, Patty, and unless somebody has a objection to it.
That's fine. It was my understanding that y'all were gonna work on sections 13 through 22, and that we would come back
And do the whole
Do
thing.
the whole,
and
with
do the
changes.
whole thing.
It's at, it's at the commission's pleasure, whatever y'all want to do. I'll just,
Because the
these,
the changes that the P&Z made at their
Mhm.
meeting last week are not in here. They've already addressed the changes that were in this,
okay,
in the comments.
The only thing we did not address were any of the legal changes that the attorney had made. So you may want to just
Go through the legal.
go through the legal changes for the first part.
okay.
Because we did not
Yeah,
have
that's what you
the,
were
I
doing.
agree.
I thought that's what you were doing, Mayor.
Is that the pleasure of the commission? We'll start on section 12, and we'll work the last half. And then,
No, so I think what Nancy was saying was, they've addressed the changes that we talked about on 1 through 13, but did not address the legal. So I think we go through the legal for the first half to make sure, hey, yeah, we're fine with this, so that they can make those changes, and then go into the second half. So just the legal comments out to the side,
Yeah, just those,
up through 13.
would it please the commission if we also took and incorporated some of the comments we felt were worthwhile? And that way, when we get through the first 12 sections, we're reasonably complete?
we addressed all the comments in section 1 through 12 in our last meeting.
Okay?
so that's done then.
Less
Those,
the legal.
but they haven't been entered in here.
Okay.
So right now, all that we're addressing is the legal input from the attorney.
Okay.
Up to, we catch up to 13.
Does that please the commission to do it that way?
Yeah,
Yes.
because they've already addressed it, although it's not in here, so if we go through the first half again, we're gonna be talking about changes that we had already talked about that they
Yeah,
haven't.
we've already whipped that horse, so.
So they have not gone through the legal, so let's address the legal up through 13, and then we'll go address the whole thing.
Okay. So on page 21, the first legal comment was that the last half of abandoned animals was actually a regulation, not a definition, and that should be moved to the regulation section of this ordinance. Is everybody in favor of doing that?
Yes.
The second comment they had was that they leave this open to where if the city contracted out the services for maintaining the facility, that if we use the word by the city, then that would create a conflict. I don't personally see an issue there.
It says recommended deleting this so that the city can contract for services or entering into an ILA with another governmental entity. So
It would
The-
read,
the attorney is asking to delete by the city.
Yeah.
It would read a
Yeah.
facility
Yeah.
operated for a purpose of impounding without having to.
I'm good with that.
Y'all
I
good
am
with that?
too,
Okay.
yes.
Makes
Have that,
sense.
Patty? We'll strike that. That's only 2 comments she had on that page. Page 22, she actually suggested that where they talked about vaccination, that we use the description that is in state law. Ashley, do you mind coming up to the mic, please? How do you feel about that? I know you're being very specific here to where it's highly defined. Do you see a problem of using just the language in the state statute?
No, not at all. The whole purpose of that was basically just to help us keep up with registrations as far as the vaccine.
You're not defining it more heavily, yeah. And the community knows too, I guess. So you would support what's in there now?
I mean, I think I would support what she's saying to reflect it, I mean, where it doesn't necessarily have to be these specific things. I mean, we could
Right.
just simplify it to one thing.
I think the state law stated that, they were required to be given their immunization by a licensed veterinarian with proven rabies shots and that kind of thing. They didn't get into the age description of when they're available to do so and that kind of thing. So I don't see in here that we're violating anything in state ordinance. They just defined it differently than what we did. We more highly defined it.
I think they haven't referred back to state law, so I'm fine with it.
Me too, and because Ashley probably has her guidelines to go by, but since this is an ordinance, she's just coding the state law, which I'm good with, because
So we okay with that?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay. They mentioned the next note they had was on dangerous animal definition, and she said that we needed to use state law provision. And I pulled that up today, and that is identical language to state law. So my plan is tomorrow is that probably Ashley and I and Patty will get this attorney on the phone or set up an appointment, get her on the phone and ask her some of these particulars. Because I went word by word and there's
This
no,
is state
this is
law.
state law. Yes, sir.
The reason they do that is in case state law changes, then you don't have to change your ordinance. Like if next year they vote and change a few words in there, then you don't have to change a few words in your ordinance. It
Makes
already
sense.
goes with what the state law was adopted.
That makes sense.
So we could just add a statement as to current state law
State law
definition.
requirement.
And whatever it is, yeah,
Is that okay, Patty? Okay. Page 23.
Let me ask Ashley a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In your history, how often have you ever seen the ordinance have to be changed because the state law changed? I'm not questioning what you're saying, but I think the state law was probably written with a great deal of, well, certainly with a lot more.
Since I've been here, our personal ordinance has not been changed.
Well, has anything in the state legislature changed something on that end that affected our ordinance that we didn't change?
yes.
yes.
Okay, that kind of brings me back to, and I was here at P&Z's meeting, and I thought a lot about it, and I thought, man, surely the legislature guys, surely, that they went to great extremes to write these animal or regulations, Surely ours and P&Z, whatever, and you're saying no, but now, you further comment on that, but my point is, surely we don't have anything that conflicts with the state's regulations on animal ordinance or animal control. If we do, then we should really rethink that whole thing. I mean, and I think we should probably have a paragraph in here that says our ordinance is intended to not conflict or override state ordinance. We should say that, because if we make a mistake and we do, then we are actually taking state law. We're changing the state law for Mason.
I don't think that's the intent, Rayburn. I think what Chad was saying was that when we will state that we have provisions per state law, meaning we're going to follow those guidelines anyway.
Yeah, I understand.
being
I
that
understand.
when they change the state law, we don't have to change the
No, I
ordinance.
understand all that. I understood it the first time, but my question is, have we written a lot of stuff in here that is already in the state law that we really need to address the things that are not addressed in the state law, that are unique to us, that doesn't conflict with the state regulation? That's my point, is,
And I think originally the animal control was guided by the state law. So, and there again, times change and it's changed. But I see what you're saying.
yeah.
The ordinance as a whole, not just the animal control, I would say annually there are laws that are changed that conflict with our ordinance
On a state level.
on a state level. Right. There's annually, there are a lot of legislation, the legislation comes down and changes things, and they may not have had the legislation before, or they may have changed the definition that we have. Now it's state mandated that you do certain things, so it conflicts with ours. So referring to on some of the things, it's easier to refer to the state law, but for ease of the use of the community,
Yeah.
that's why I think that these things have been stated in here. But maybe it would be better to refer to the state law and then have accessible those state regulations so that it can be easily found.
No, I agree with that. Somebody we're lucky that they go to our website, and they're lucky they download them, and expect them to go to navigate through SOS's operations.
Well, and like on this one, right now, they have a 1-year and a 3-year vaccination. If they come up with a 5-year vaccination, how does we say 1 or 3? Now there's a 5-year, the legislation will change theirs, we're not up to date anymore.
Yeah.
So it does, we are out of line a lot.
That's just the nature of the beast. And that's the
Right.
reason we have to keep working with our attorneys to update it. But to me, the way the thing works is, we want to have something that the public can understand and look at, and they don't have to be going to different penal
No, I agree.
codes to see what the law is. And then if they write a citation, and the person goes to court on it, and their attorney, or they prove that this is not in line with state law, it'll override us. And then we'll be aware that we've got to amend that.
And maybe even leave this information here, but then identify the state as in state regulation, whatever. So it's noted, so if it changes, then, it's still as noted in.
No.
So you can read it and know what it is, but it may
So
have to be
refer back to
changed.
that regulation.
Refer back to it. You can write it out for the convenience of the community.
Right. Okay, so can we move on to page 23? We have a comment there that regulatory language under owner, person feeding feral cat colony shall be construed as owner, harbor, or keeping those cats. And the attorney suggests that we put that in the regulatory section of the ordinance instead of as a definition. I understand what the intent was on that, but that'll have to be, I'm assuming, picked up somewhere else if everybody's agreeable. Nothing on 24, 25. Thanks for remembering these, Patty. Makes it easier. The first item is needs administrative warrant for search and seizure of an animal. And that was basically written to where if we had the suspicion that there was a problem, that we could automatically go up on premise. She says that violates the search and seizure or unwarranted searches. We may have to get with the attorney and see how she wants to restructure that. So we'll work on that.
We're going to refer that to the attorney.
Yes. That's okay.
Yeah.
Next item is recommended deleting language invoking state law that is a higher Class C violation. outside the Class C misdemeanor range, this would require filing charges in a different court.
She recommends deleting it.
Yeah, I guess it's not required. Anybody have a problem with deleting that particular portion of that penalty?
Mm-mm.
Because if it is like cruelty to an animal, then that's a felony. And so that will, when we address that later, that will fall into place. 26. Comment is recommended deleting the language and going with the penalty language in section 3 as it covers any violation of the ordinance. That's probably something we can clean up on the entire ordinance, is specifying what the penalties are. Because we go by state law, then if they're increased in state law, then they will increase here as well. Would that be correct, Ashley? If state law increased the penalty for a Class C misdemeanor, then it would change this. So we don't have to specify what the exact penalty is. Is that correct?
But that was a different attorney that gave these specific.
I think Nancy's got a good argument, though. The people are not gonna go compare this to that. So maybe there's some language in there that would somehow, that it's the intention of the commission and that we provide an ordinance that does everything we're describing it to do, and our intention behind it. However, if state law changes, it will override our ordinance without us correcting it the day legislature ends. Those laws go into effect, but we've got to have a reasonable amount of time to put our ordinance together. But otherwise, we end up, I don't know how.
Well, to me, that's a catch-all phrase that should be just put in here, period, across the board, because it's dealing with almost every issue that we've got. And so we just need to have a phrase or a section in here that just simply states, that upon change of state law, our ordinance will be changed, the ordinances will be applied accordingly to the state law.
And it's intended to meet whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
puts, I think that's well put, Bob.
We'll inquire, if that's okay with the commission, what the attorney advises on this, because to me, it looks fine. I mean, they were just stating that cruelty to an animal is under a different punishment than a Class C misdemeanor. I don't see what the problem is there, but we'll report back. We get a better defined answer. Okay, can we move on to page 26?
28.
It's the same thing again.
So my understanding is that any bite, the hospital must contact the animal control officer in whatever jurisdiction. That's my understanding. They have to.
What page are you on?
28, I'm sorry. Did we not finish 26?
Or 26?
Huh? Oh, I thought we were referring that back to the attorney.
Yeah, I think that in the last part,
Yeah.
25. So, and then, go ahead, sorry. What was your comment on that again?
So my understanding is that a hospital, if they are treating a dog bite, must refer or contact the animal officer in that city to notify them. Is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know why
I think because, and I read that too, Mike, and I think what it is that, because I read the recommendation from the attorney, and it's saying, does the city have the staff to enforce this? Because you read this, because I read it like this when we reviewed it the first time. We don't even have one position for the whole town, much less for the city. So I'm thinking that's how she read it too. And that's probably why,
Ashley,
comment
you mind
there.
coming up to the mic for a moment? Again, does the state law state that on bike cases, is there a requirement that the physician, emergency room, hospital, or whatever, has to contact the jurisdiction? So we're just
Yes,
mimicking
so-
state law?
Yes, well, any bike that's reported, they're required to call, just in case if the dog isn't current on a rabies shot, that we're able to quarantine, or if you guys get the dog tested, then we know which direction.
So if they went to Llano, and I know this has happened before, they go to Llano,
Lano's still required to call us.
we can't file on Llano for doing that. They could be filed on under state law by the prosecuting agency there in that community. So we're just basically repeating this for, if they showed up at Monty's office or Mid-Coastal, that they are required to report it. Maybe they don't handle trauma cases, but they're still required to report it. Or if we have any other facility go in. Seems reasonable to have it on our books.
So this basically, and you correct me if I'm wrong, this basically saying that state law requires hospitals to report it, so we can remove this and just go with B saying that when you get the call, you'll investigate it, right? That's what it's saying,
exactly.
okay?
Yeah,
So we don't have to put state law
No.
in here for the hospitals?
And I think that's what the attorney meant, was that we're stating state law.
Got it.
Because we can't govern the hospitals.
Yep, you're
We
right,
can't
Yeah.
go into each
you're right.
physician.
I agree with that.
Ashley's not gonna go over to Brady and
Exactly.
try to arrest a physician because he didn't
Exactly.
report to her.
Doesn't have jurisdiction.
Right.
Maybe.
She could
She can't
report
do
it to
that.
the county attorney there, or
So I'm fine
or
with
district
that.
attorneys there, so we okay with that one?
Yeah,
So is it removed?
Just sort of remove
Yes,
it.
yeah.
yes.
And she had a question, do we have the staff to enforce it? Well, we have the staff to investigate it, and we will do that, because we do the county as well as the city.
Right.
So, legitimate question. I think the next one's on page 30. And I tried to find that, that's in regards to any other animal besides dogs, correct? We are on
It's
section
applicable to-
8C.
It's applicable to all animals, in addition to dogs, yes.
Nancy or Ashley, can y'all address that?
Question is whether, because we're not a home rule city, we're a general law city.
Well, is this thing, they're talking about other animals besides dogs, correct?
This is a tax for animal on animal attack. So if your dog attacks somebody's cat,
It says here as well as persons, though. It does include persons.
but it says
As well as
Other
persons.
animals.
we don't have the authority for this action, but can create a separate, we have authority, from what I understand, and I think it needs to be discussed with an attorney.
Yeah.
I think
we
it's
refer
above
this
our pay
back to
scale.
the attorney for,
Yeah, I don't follow that. I tried to find state law on that, I couldn't find it today. I think the next one's on page 33. I don't understand it either.
In order for the animal to become city property, the ordinance must have an affirmative statement the owner is divested of all property rights. And
I
on,
mean, is
on the-
that not,
on the ordinance, it reads, an owner is divested of any property rights or interest in an animal if not redeemed within 72 business hours.
is that not an affirmative statement?
I'll ask her about it, that's okay, I don't understand it.
Yeah, I'm not following that. In my opinion, that's an affirmative statement.
But
What's in there?
I think she's talking about,
Unless it's a difference of any and all. Ours says any, she says all.
Right.
I don't understand it.
all property rights.
now, that last statement on that page 33, that kind of makes sense, and Robert's made this point before. If we adopt one out, we require them to get proper vaccination. Ashley, would that make sense to go ahead and get proper vaccination and just up the fee on it? We don't necessarily have a fee for adoption fee, do we, or do we?
We do have an adoption fee. The issue where we came up with this is, say if we have the dog in the pound for however many days in the lease limit, just because we're ready for the dog to be vaccinated doesn't mean that we can get an appointment with the vet's office. It might be a month, it might be 3 weeks, it might be so. We're having an extra hold time for these animals for an unnecessary 3 months just because we can't get it in for one shot. So I mean, that adds in our time here in the week, that's overtime every weekend, twice a day, taking care of the animal. That adds up to just not being able to get a season shot.
So,
If that, are you talking about an animal, a dog or cat that is going to be adopted or, but it's not neutered or spayed? Same. It's just, it is vaccinated, but not fit, not neutered, spayed.
so I guess you could follow up on that. I mean, they'll get a free tag.
So what we do when we adopt them out is we have a paper, which of course, if they're not gonna be in the city limits, there's not anything we can do. But we have an agreement to register, they sign, they have a month or however long, a certain date they have to register the dog by, which ensures they have a rabies shot, because you can't register the dog without the rabies shot.
But if they're in the county, we can't enforce any of it anyway.
While we're on that subject, and we're probably off page, but here it is. So we can conceivably have our hands on an animal who is picked up. We can't tell people, I guess we can't tell people they have to fix their dog. We can't make those demands on them.
I mean, you could,
Well,
but I'm not really sure how you would go about enforcing that again, because.
well, but we have the dog now. So I guess where I'm having trouble, where I'm having a difficult time, and I really am not looking to dictate anything. I am looking for help in moving this along where it's amenable for everyone. My simplest, greatest issue here is we might get our hands on a cat or a dog that is fertile as a turtle, and we get it. We hold on to it, and maybe one of the great and wonderful thing about Mason is we have a number of adopting and rescue services here. They're very busy, and so they say, we'll take it. And we go, great, right? And then we all receive, he said, and then if somebody wants to adopt a dog or the cat, they come and they have to get vaccinated, and they have to get the rabies shot, and I'm leaving something out, maybe there's something else, but they don't have to get neutered or spayed, they don't have to get fixed. But they do, let me finish, but it says in that letter that we got, that they signed an agreement that says that you will have that done. My concern is, we have our hands on, and I'm gonna be picky, I'm just picking on one just because it's easy. We're a wildcat, if we get a feral cat, and it gets adopted out.
I'm not adopting a feral cat.
So when we get feral cats, where do they go?
They either get euthanized or they go very far outside of the city limits to the wildcat. But I'm not releasing feral cats within the city.
Okay. I remember that letter said something like more than 50% of the cats that are adopted go into the country, or the animals that we adopt out go out in the county somewhere else, go away from, over 50%. Well, that means 50% don't, I guess, is what that means. My concern is we have a cat reproducing, cats reproducing pretty quickly in town, and we can't catch up with the rate that it's being done. And we actually have our hands on a cat that is not fixed or neutered. But we release it maybe to an agency that wants to adopt those cats. And they say that it said in there that they sign an agreement that they will get it fixed, okay? And whether they adopt it, whether that cat or dog goes back in the city or not, it says that they will, that whoever adopts it will agree to that. My concern was, and maybe it wasn't all in the letter, my concern is that we have an agreement. I don't know that if you do or don't do, who's going to take you to court and spend $1,000 or $2,000 to enforce the thing that you said you were going to do, number one. Number two, is that ever followed up on? And if somebody doesn't have enough money to fix them going into the deal, they're probably not going to have enough money to fix them in a month from now. So that's where I'm having an issue about releasing animals that we wish were fixed. And
When
that,
you say an agency taking, do you mean like a rescue taking the animal?
yes, ma'am.
So once the rescue's taken the animal, a reputable rescue, though.
Yeah, well, right.
Not all rescues
Yeah,
are.
the good ones here, yeah.
But Mason does have a few that are.
Can you take the mic to her?
They will be fixed and they will have a shot also. That's not. As far as the animals not leaving from us, leaving from,
Well-
we'll say, for example, Second Chance or from Buddy Animal Rescue or.
But from us to
Whoever
Second
they're
Chance or us to Buddy, they're not fixed in that transaction. You're assuming they'll get fixed on their end when they pick them up, when they have them, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And Robert, I don't think it's an issue as much, but you're thinking they can pay for it now. The problem is holding that animal and paying to take care of that animal until you can get it in to be neutered. It's months. That's real expensive for the city, and then the person adopting can't afford to have this animal they want to adopt held for 2 months, because that's the earliest
I
appointment.
think your point's valid. And going beyond that point, let's say I got enough money to give you, and I don't even know what the numbers are. I got just enough money to give you $100 to adopt that dog. That's all I got. And that pays for the rabies and the vaccination and stuff.
Well, and then
And you
I
said-
have $100 to pay for it to be neutered.
Well, wait.
But then-
But they sign an agreement, and I don't have,
But we're not getting
When
into
you
that
say
with the
they
city.
sign an agreement, who is they, the rescue or the person adopting the animal?
say that again?
When you say they are signing an agreement, do you mean they is in the rescue or they is in the person adopting?
They signing the agreement to the rescue group.
No, they don't sign an agreement to the rescue group. When they get the animal from the rescue group, rescues are not sending them out unfixed and unvaccinated.
They're fixed,
They're fixed, they have shots.
and the city doesn't require it, so it's not evident.
Okay. All right, so we're
Okay.
not releasing, once they get their hands on an unfixed cat, they fix it.
Absolutely.
Okay, that wasn't clear in that letter that I read.
So I would defer this to the attorney and ask for appropriate language.
I think we can do that. I think it's just saying here, if we adopt the animal out and we follow up and they don't have the rabies shot, then we can cite them for owning an animal inside the city that have rabies shots. If it's in the county, it's not enforceable. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I don't, unless y'all want me to ask her about this one. She's just saying it's difficult to enforce, and we realize that. Several things in here is going to be difficult to enforce. We get into feral cats, some of that's going to be real difficult to enforce. But if we make a law, the good people will abide by it, and we'll get that help. So some things will be difficult to enforce.
So
But I'll
we'll-
ask her if you want me to.
Well, so we're not going to delete that?
I'm sorry?
We're not going to delete that? No?
We're not going to adopt out an animal and not ask
No, I'm
them.
talking about the language, sir. I'm talking about the language.
The
The
language.
attorney recommendation,
Yes, she says it's difficult to enforce
right.
under CT 12. So I would be in favor to leave like it is. Yes, it'll be difficult to enforce. If they stay in the city, then we can follow up on it. If they go to the county, we can follow up on it, but nothing we can do about it.
I'm fine with that.
We good?
Yep.
Moving on to page 35. The CT 13 comment, I don't quite understand.
She scratched out are not acceptable. To the sentence that says chains and ropes are not acceptable, prohibited types of tethers. And she says recommend revising as the city must prohibit behavior in order to make it a violation.
It is illegal to use chains or ropes as types of tethers, is what she's saying it has to be. It has to be a violation.
Yeah. Making it,
You can't do
stating it's
that.
illegal.
Yeah, instead of saying that not acceptable is,
Right. It's
Just
not the
law.
same as being prohibited, right?
It's not legal,
yeah.
so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I agree.
I've got it now.
That's good.
You strike out those three words, two
Yeah.
words, and
Yes.
just prohibit it. Okay, that makes sense now. Comment C14, recommend revision to regulations instead of guidelines.
Right.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Good.
With that.
We okay with that?
Yep.
Page 36. Guess that's redundant.
I'm good
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
Okay. CT 16. Does state law regulate this, Ashley? We're at section 12D. They give you the authority to break a window out? Think so? You don't think so? We'll check with the attorney on that, if that's okay. See if we got that authority.
I think she's saying
It
that
just,
if you break, somebody breaks a window,
You get it.
that animal has to be rescued. You
Yeah.
can't take it out and then give it back to them.
Yeah,
yeah,
You've got to put it in a rescue.
yeah, that's how I read it too.
yeah, that's,
We need to make sure we've got the authority to take action.
so basically, the thing they're saying is that animal needs to be rescued. It will become property of the city or not property of, but
Yeah, that needs
I
the
mean,
attorney.
you rescue it, I
wording.
understand that. I mean, you've rescued it under
Yeah.
conditions.
yeah,
If we can use force to do that, then we can fine them. But we're going to put it in our shelter. How is that helping the animal?
Well, it's taking it away
You're
from the
removing it from an-
endangered.
it's in a
species.
life-threatening situation.
Life-threatening situation.
Right. Is that,
And
Ashley, is
that's
there,
something an attorney would have to do the wording on, I would think.
Ashley,
I
what
think
would,
we oughta
what would,
refer that.
what's the law now, or what are you faced with if you find an automobile, a dog or cat sitting in an automobile? Do you know what the state law, how
The
they
only
handle it?
situation that we've ever dealt with something like that personally was we contacted a deputy as a peace officer, and they helped assist in the situation. But we personally, like, as ourselves, have never done it by ourselves.
So,
Y'all want me to question the attorney?
Yeah,
So we can
refer
get
to
that
the
cleaned
attorney
up?
and ask for appropriate language.
and I'd like for state law clarification on that one. There's got to be something in there about that.
Page 37.
Yeah, I agree with that. Basically saying it's redundant,
Yeah,
it's in the penalty.
Yeah.
both of them.
On both of them?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Just strike that on 37, both of those. Okay. Did we finish 12 last time? Okay. Okay, so 13, humane care. Were there any public comments on that at all, Nancy?
On H, and there was a question asked about it, and as far as I can tell, I just had a question. I mean, there was a question mark on that. Nope.
Sorry, it wasn't clear what you're saying.
No.
No comments, okay. Everybody good with section 13? Moving on to section 14, public and private nuisances. Why was that stricken out, or struck out there on the page 39, fourth paragraph down? A citation fee for nuisance shall be no less than $25 a day, or more than $500 for each day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
On 14C, it should be unlawful constitute a public nuisance for the owner of the animal to allow the feces deposited on by the animal to remain on public or private property. How about the owner's property? That's private property.
Yeah. Point.
I think that's where we get into the smell. And this is not just talking about dogs necessarily, correct?
This is if you're walking down the street and your dog
Yes.
comes and goes in my
Yeah,
yard.
I know what it's intending. but-
Right,
but
yeah,
that's
and
what's
I
written.
understand what he's
You know,
saying.
That is the owner's
Uh,
property. And, well,
Private property other than owners
other than owners, yeah.
would probably solve that issue.
Be nice for the owners too also, but
Yeah, but
Do we need to define that better, or are you okay with that?
put private property
Other than.
other
Other-
than owners at the end of that statement.
You okay with that, Patty? Anything else in that section?
that's the only thing I had.
So, so on D, 14D, It shall be unlawful for any person to keep any animal that causes excessive noise. And I don't remember if we have a definition of excessive noise, because I can't hear. And if my wife has excellent hearing health,
What our ordinance says now, whenever I deal with a case like this, whenever I have a case like this, I go and listen for the animal, and it has to be, like if it's a barking dog, it has to bark for consecutive 10 minutes, 3 days, in a 15-day period. So, and I've used that ordinance a number of times, and it works the way we do that.
so is that something that is defined, or we need to define, or, because I know when,
It's defined in our new, we just did the new
It
noise
is.
ordinance
is?
not
Okay.
too long ago, and
Not right
that's
here.
the way we defined it in there.
Yeah, in the
Okay,
noise ordinance,
okay.
it's defined.
all right, and there's nothing to do with decibels or,
No, it's just, yeah, constant, and the law always says what a reasonable person would think was
Right.
excessive, you know, and kind of gives me that authority to say whether
Okay.
or not it was. And I just make recordings of it, and I promise you that if you listen to those recordings, you would agree that it is excessive.
okay, all right.
I would suggest if you, but this will come later on whenever we talk about the roosters. Suggest that you put crowing in there, and then in a minute when we talk about roosters, that you take that part out on not letting us have roosters. So, because I can use this ordinance to deal with loud roosters just as easy as I can loud dogs, and I will also say that the dogs that I have recordings of are way louder than any rooster I've ever got a recording of. And I've used it before, that ordinance before on roosters. There was a family that had 6 roosters in little bitty cages, and they were crowing in the morning a lot, and I did use that ordinance on those roosters, and he got rid of them, so,
Okay.
yeah.
It doesn't matter time of day, right?
Right,
Whether-
that's the one thing that we changed in the other ordinance, because it used to say only at night, and we changed it to where it was any time
Okay.
that it's a nuisance. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I would recommend that crowing be added, because he has been able to solve a rooster problem in the past using this the excessive noise, but this would just give him further.
Yeah, and I'm absolutely fine with that.
Anything else on 14? Or nuisance?
Where do we add where do we make that change that he suggested?
Just adding on 14C,
14D.
other than owner.
Oh, yeah, 14C was other than owner, 14D was adding crowing into that second line.
On the removal of waste, part A, do we need to put other than owner private property again?
Have that okay, Patty? It's under nuisance A. Anything else under 14?
Yeah.
15.
What if someone's got a skunk and they've had whatever you call it, de-skunktified, such a word as that? Because I don't know anybody in Mason, but I do know someone that has got a pet skunk because they've had that.
Well, this
that-
list
that
came
country.
straight out of state law of these
Okay.
animals.
Yeah, I think Texas Parks and Wildlife has some new regulations on
Okay.
So,
wild animals as pets.
and they, I feel like they had reason for
Well, native wild animals.
specifying.
What?
Native or imported?
Native.
Okay.
I don't know about imported.
Well, the
Texas
reason I
Parks and Wildlife doesn't involve exotics, they're livestock.
well, Mason Mountain is covered with it. I'm just saying, I find it odd that Parks and Wildlife would say no sloths and no gorillas, and that's why, you think that was probably
That's
TPWD?
individual possession of,
Yeah,
not.
okay.
I also, besides, I would recommend, and we had several discussions on removing roosters as being a, I also had non-native animals put in there. That was this is recommendations from those letters that were turned in.
Yeah,
Uh,
let's finish 15 first, Nancy.
That is 15.
I thought it was
That's-
under 16 or whatever. So that has to do with wild and prohibited animals?
16 is foul.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
this
I-
is under 15.
Yeah, we're working on 15, are we not?
That's right. At the
Okay.
end of that
Let's
first
get through with it,
statement.
then we'll go to 16.
I'm on 15. I
Okay?
am speaking on 15. The first section.
Yes, ma'am.
Rhinoceroses, buffalo, camels, and roosters. I recommend you get rid of roosters
Yep.
in that first paragraph.
Okay.
The last
A
word.
little
in
hard
it.
of hearing. 15 is on wild and prohibited animals.
Correct. That
Correct?
first
Okay.
section in it.
Okay?
The
very
last word says roosters.
Oh, okay.
And
Camels
to
and
add to
roosters.
that statement, and non-native animals. That same statement, instead of roosters,
What is a non-native animal?
and
Right.
axis
Exotic.
deer.
When it was introduced.
Anteater. It's an animal that is not native to Texas or our area. And on the third paragraph, may be possessed within the appropriate permit. Okay, that says about deer. And the next thing is you can have antelopes in the city limits. I think we need to strike that you can have an antelope in the city limits.
If we could add that to the list.
No,
First paragraph?
just scratch it.
No, delete it on the
Oh.
second paragraph, antelope.
The third paragraph,
Third
yeah.
paragraph.
I'm
The
sorry.
following
third paragraph.
animals may be possessed or kept within the city limits. Okay, deer within accordance with
Yeah, I'm just
Parks and
saying.
Wildlife. The next one says antelopes.
Yeah, I'm just saying, we'll put it on the first paragraph.
No, we
Prohibited.
just delete it. Most
Yeah.
antelopes are non-native. I don't think we have any native animals, any native antelope in Texas, except pronghorn, but that's not native to our part of Texas.
So Nancy, anybody that's keeping deer in the city limits has to have a permit, right? by
Oh,
the-
They
yeah.
have to do it
State property.
according to Texas Parks and Wildlife.
Okay.
They're over the deer,
It's state property.
yes.
Should we remove the deer and the antelope? I don't know.
No.
No, they could be able to possess them in the city limits in accordance with the Texas wildlife permits. So if they get a permit.
Which is not
Right, but if they have one to, say one of the guys from Mason Mountain has a fawn that he's feeding, bottle feeding, he can have that in the city limits because he has the permit and to do it.
Well, if
So
the school wanted to have a rescued deer that couldn't be turned loose, but good for educational purposes, with the proper permit, they could have it in the city.
Correct.
Okay.
If they meet,
Okay.
If they
Parks
get the
and Wildlife.
prop, and
Yeah.
that permit's not easy to get.
No.
It's not something that's, but we don't want to disallow it.
okay, so on the
I'm good with
rooster,
those changes and good with 15.
say it again.
I'm good with those changes and good with.
On the rooster, are you making a proposal of how many?
No, That's under foul, it's already written. So if they can have so many chickens and roosters combined. They gotta count the roosters. So those numbers are already in there.
Okay? So y'all okay on scratching roosters, scratching antelope, and adding non-native animals?
Okay, and you had part of my ignorance, but a hybrid? You have a hybrid down here where we're going to only gas operated or what? What do they mean by hybrid?
Where are you?
In that first section out there, talking about the dingoes, coyotes, where it says dogs, the wolf dogs and hybrids.
I guess I was gonna say if they mix an alligator and a crocodile, you can't have either one, you can't have the mix
I
of them.
just didn't,
I don't know what a hybrid
I
is.
didn't,
This was out of,
I didn't really know what it could be. I'm just trying to think of that.
maybe a kangaroo and a wallaby.
Kind of got a term there that I wasn't too much aware of.
Yeah, any other changes on 15? Now we get to 16, which will be interesting. Fowl, livestock.
Wait a minute.
Let's discuss fowl first. Well, may not even do that. Patty brought it to my attention on House Bill 1750, and I read through it today. It's not a real long House bill. It was signed into law, it looks like, on September the 1st of 23. And it gives livestock owners the right, or actually, it gives the city does not have the right to regulate livestock owners. That's the way you read it? And so we will confer before we go into all this density with the attorney and see if our understanding is the same as hers. Because if this is true, then we cannot regulate density at all.
Is House Bill 1750?
So I guess as long as
They're ready.
it can be enforced via the noise ordinance and the fecal matter and, you know.
Correct, nuisance, all that stuff. You know, if we can prove that there's a problem that reasonably necessary to protect persons that reside in the immediate area, infestation of vermin and insects, some very specific things here, it's radiation, some weird stuff, then we can enforce it, but we can't otherwise.
He doesn't
So
have minimum requirements for the size area that you have to have?
they have nothing.
But in order, I mean, we can regulate what happens up on.
The nuisance.
It's not,
Because it's the other.
they had too much livestock in a actual residential area, and that wasn't, we can't regulate that.
And
And that's my point, is that what if you want to put
can.
6 foot?
We did that one because it was a commercial, they were operating a commercial
Well, that's- yeah,
business in a
that's different,
residential.
yeah.
That's a different ordinance
That
that
is
we're
different.
breaking.
Yes.
They, the legislation has asked Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service to develop practices that are beneficial to raising livestock, vegetation, different things, crops. And so if something comes out on that, and then we could pass a law to support that. In other words, if they say, you don't need to have 100 horses on an acre, then we could look at that when that comes about. They're supposed to do it in a very fast manner, but we'll just have to see how it comes down the pike. So let me see what the attorney says on this, because there's no sense going into a long, drawn-out discussion on any kind of livestock, and that includes fowl. And so I would recommend we table that until we find out more.
So if I have 52 cattle on 10 acres as pets,
And you're keeping them clean, quiet, no flies, and you're quiet.
what if the flies are my pets?
No,
So,
You can't raise flies, and you have the horses there to support the fly. You can't do that much.
Now, on those sections, feral cat is at the very end of that section, 15,
Section what?
on page 47. I'm sorry, that's section 16.
The fowl and the cat.
Feral cats. So we can discuss that. And she's referencing 42092. I couldn't find anything in that section
42.0.
that had to do with feral cats.
She's just talking about the defense to prosecution language from penal code, not necessarily feral cats.
I just comment CT 20. This section looks like it's drafted prior to new legislation regarding feral cats. Recommend inserting the defense for prosecution language penal code 42-092. And I've got it right here, and I read through it. I couldn't find anything to do with feral cats. So if you want, I will ask her what that means.
Strike
I
that.
think
Mayor?
she's-
Okay, go ahead, Patty.
On the penal code 42.092, B3 makes it an offense to fail unreasonably to provide necessary food, water, care, or shelter, referring to animals. So I think she's saying, caring for, let's see, if a person is found to be feeding feral cats, that person will be fined. Caring for a feral cat, a person shall be considered the owner and liable for city licensing. I think she's saying that there's a conflict there because of that penal code, that it is an offense to fail unreasonably to provide necessary food, water, care, or shelter.
Does
Okay,
care
so she-
include vaccinations?
Care.
She's deducting that if they feed them and they don't provide them with shelter and water and care, which could include vaccinations and all that, then they're in violation of the penal code 42-092. So
A person commits an offense if the person is intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly failing unreasonably to provide necessary food, water, care, or shelter for an animal in the person's custody.
well, but if they feed the cat down at Lowe's grocery store, that's not their cat. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
But if they are caring for it, then it is technically in their care.
But they're not doing the full care, they're just feeding.
And it says they're in ownership of it, that means they have to register it with the
Yeah.
city. If they don't register with the city, which requires the vaccination, then
Yeah.
at that point, they can be fined because they haven't registered with the city.
Here's where I have a problem with that, because I know specifically of cats being fed, watered, and there's 17, 18 of those things. And those things are sickly. I mean, like I wouldn't touch them. They're, I don't know what they got, gangrene, the eyes are all, it's nasty. It is nasty. I wouldn't touch one. And so, yes, they're providing food, yes, they're providing water, but no medical care, obviously. So I guess, how do you define that? I mean,
I think that's what that penal code
They're
covers,
going
Mike,
part of the
is
way,
that-
but not all the way.
Right, but according to the ordinances, if you're feeding a feral cat, you become owner. And you have to provide to the city that you're the owner of that feral cat, and you have to provide everything under that penal code, otherwise you get fined. So,
We can't prosecute them for feeding it, but we can prosecute them for
Not registering it.
right,
Okay.
right.
Everything that falls under the category of care. I think that was pretty,
Well,
That's pretty well
It says
written
they're
in that
owners,
regard.
and if they're owners in the city,
Right.
they have to register that cat. So they are in violation of
When,
registering
when
the
you
cat.
when you feed and water a feral cat, you're admitting that you're an owner, according to this, you're an owner of that feral
I
cat.
agree 100%.
And that's when the city has a leg to stand on by saying, okay, you're feeding and watering these cats. Did you register them? I want to see the proof of vaccinations, blah, 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 and all this stuff that falls through.
Get that mic to Ashley again, please.
Yeah.
Ashley, how can we reasonably enforce this? If you go to Lowe's 10 o'clock at night and a lady steps out with a bag of cat food, and 15 cats come up, and you cite her because she has more than 6 to start with,
I don't know that you can, because, I mean, we talked about, we use Lowe's, for example, for say if you're giving away cats or dogs, because Lowe's is a private business property that they're allowed to basically do as they want on that property. So if they're allowing people to feed on their property, then I don't know how we stop that.
But then, is that person then responsible for those cats?
In my opinion, yes.
If
But-
they're feeding,
Actually,
even though it's,
actually Lowe's should be responsible
I was going
for
to
it.
say, you should contact the owner of Lowe's and tell him this is what's going on in your parking lot, and it's a violation, and you're now owner of these feral cats, and this is what you need to provide for the city.
I think it puts it on them as well. I said, you have illegal activity occurring on your property, so you're part of this that's going on right now. And I think, as a business owner, I would go, you can't come here anymore. I think that was really, I can imagine how many lawyers look through this thing.
Playing devil's advocate, stop and think about it. If they stop feeding their cats, where are the cats gonna go? All over the neighborhood.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
that
a,
would be-
that's a good, well, and, you know, reading the citizens' input, I read one of the letters that said, we have those trash bins without covers, and they're catching all the cats that probably aren't getting fed in the neighborhood, going diving, dumpster diving, I guess. I don't know, and that was something I was gonna ask about, if we actually do have dumpsters that don't have lids out there in businesses that,
Most of them got lids, but they're just flopped open, wind hits them or whatever.
It's a regulation,
so
isn't
all
it?
our dumpsters
Yeah.
do have lids.
I don't know of any that don't.
Well, in one of the letters, she was very specific on the
That they're
location of the dumpsters.
well, I drove down the alley they were talking about, because they said it's close to City Hall, and without calling any merchants' names. And all those lids are open except the cities. The cities were closed, thank goodness. But, when you have restaurants or any place that's serving food and they're dumping that stuff in those dumpsters, or they have an oil pit back there that several of those have that's above ground, I think we ought to put it in the ordinance that they have to keep the lids on. I don't know how we word that. I can ask the attorneys how we can word that.
Yeah,
Should
well,
we-
and
we-
that also helps
Don't you
control
have to
the
have
feral
dumpsters
cat
shut all the
population
time?
going into,
Yeah,
dumpster
right.
diving. You're gonna have less cats looking for
Yeah.
dumpsters, because,
You're
Okay.
still gonna have the cats,
Just a
they
second.
just won't be
Robert,
at the
go ahead.
dumpster.
Did you have something to say?
And most of the city ordinances that I've seen all require that your dumpsters have lids on them. I mean, that's to keep the rats and the vermins out of the thing at night, not just cats that can jump and run, but everything out of there from feeding. And, we don't have them here, but there are restaurants that purposely put food out at night that's leftover food.
Yeah, we'll try to get some language there. Y'all have a comment over here?
Oh, I was just saying that the cats are still gonna be there, like, just because you have the dumpster. I mean, that obviously attracts them, but I don't think having dumpsters with the lid open is what causes the feral cat population. And I think that that's what that comment was trying to imply. I just disagree with that. I think it just attracts them. It's not the reason
yeah,
why we
I
have
didn't
them.
say it was gonna
Yeah.
eliminate the population. It does attract them, though.
Sure.
Really, it can help, because if we can discourage the feeding,
Right.
if we can discourage the dumpster diving, then there's no cure. Somebody had a comment, says, why don't we contact other cities and see how they've solved this problem? I mean, Misty and Nancy, and I've called around when I talk to other city managers, city administrators. Nobody's got a perfect solution. There's some solutions out there. And Misty, are you prepared to talk to us about the NRP,
TNR?
Yes,
I can.
Please.
I don't have too much information, but there's a group of us that, after kind of having these discussions and just talking about the feral cat population, and we kind of got together and then we talked with Buddy's Animal Rescue. Most of y'all are probably familiar with them. Terry adopts neonatal kittens. So we really just kind of went to that organization and said, one of the reasons why you're getting all these kittens is because of the feral cat population. If we can do a trap, neuter, return program, we think that would help your organization. So they agreed to let us work under their nonprofit for now to trap, neuter, and return feral cats around the city. So what we would do is, there are a lot of colonies, but we plan to start with some of the ones that are not in very public places, just because we're pretty new to, or actually we're very new to doing this. So we would trap those cats, take them to vets to be spayed, neutered, and their ears tipped, and then returned back out. Obviously, that's not a quick fix. We probably wouldn't see results for 3 to 5 years, but it's not, like I said, it's not the greatest solution, but it is something that can help. And there's communities around us that do it already. Menard has a program. Pretty much every other town has a program. Mason does not. So we plan to start doing that within the next 2 weeks. So that should help, hopefully.
okay, thank you.
And what was that called?
We're working under Buddy's Animal Rescue, but it's just called a TNR program, trap, neuter, return, release.
Do you have a system in place or a map, if you will, on where you're going to start, and can you share that?
I don't think we're prepared to share that just yet, but yes, we do have colonies identified, and then I think once we get started and really kind of get our feet underneath us, then I think we'll be open to the public saying, hey, there's a huge feral cat colony in my neighborhood. Would you come to my house and, help trap? So I think we will be open to that.
So who foots the bill for that?
It's donations. Yeah. And that was one of the things that when I very first started, when I would ask Ashley or Patty, why can't the city do that? And just the cost of it, and the time is just crazy. So, yeah, we're relying on donations, and we already have a few donations that we're very pleased about, but yeah, it'll definitely be a community effort. There's a few of us that have started, but hopefully we'll have a lot more community members who want to get involved. And I think it's not the city's, in my opinion, it's not the city's feral cat problem, it's our community's feral cat problem.
Right.
So, yeah, and I think once we kind of get our feet underneath us, we'll be happy to share the plan, and I would love the city to be involved as much as you can.
I appreciate that comment you made, because I know numerous places, and I hear numerous people out in the community say it's the city's fault, it's the city's responsibility, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, not really. It's a community issue. And you're right. It's going to have to take the community to get this resolved, if it ever
I
gets
applaud
resolved.
the program. I think that's.
Absolutely.
If you can trap as fast as they reproduce,
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Thank you, and thank Patty also, and whoever else was involved in going out of town and to other cities and meeting with people and really working hard to develop a program. anybody can come up with great ideas, but execution is always the difficult part, and certainly the financing. But I think that you're right. I think we need to recognize as a city as a whole that that's what we got to do. So, good.
I was just gonna say something, I knew when we're looking at codes, and this was referring on the feral cats and feeding, which is, they cited 42.092. There's a 91.022 that says feeding of animals prohibited in Texas. It shall be unlawful for any person to feed wild animals, stray animals, or feral community cats, regardless of age, sex, or temperament. So it's there already.
Under state law? Which one,
It's not,
which one is that one, John?
well, I'm looking at, yeah, it's a coded ordinance, but I was gonna look at it and see, so we can check that out. Also.
Good,
Okay?
thank you.
Because it's on a code of ordinance for another city, but we'll look at it and see.
Are y'all in favor that we'll do a little research on that and check with the attorney and see, point this out and see how to word something there that will help us? You know, in the definitions, we had a deal, if you're feeding a feral cat, then you are basically saying you're the owner. We could put that there as well, I think. But is there any other discussion about feral cats? I think we just need to get a little bit more advice before we put something down. If not, we'll move on to section 17, traps. Discussion on that. And this is just required for we can not have people tamper with our traps and that kind of thing, or as we're trapping in areas that we're trying to rid things. It could be, besides just cats, it could be skunks and raccoons and possums and other unwanted.
I guess depending on, that number D is either going to stay or going out, right? Paying a $50 for each cat, kitten that is trapped, removed from the property?
Well, that will happen if they were able to trap them on that property. They can't trap them on their private property unless they have permission, but if they do, then they have to pay the fee. Like I'm trapping cats at my house, we have to pay $15 per cat for them to be taken.
Specify if you're feeding a cat. So say a cat wanders up, you decide to feed it for 6 months, then it has a litter of kittens, and all of a sudden you decide, well, I don't want this cat, I don't want a litter of kittens, so come pick them up. That's different than just a stray cat showing up
Right.
at your house and you want to trap it.
Create the problem, then you'll have to pay to get it cleaned up. Anybody have a problem with that? It's a financial incentive.
That was 17.
Anything else on 17? 18?
Yes, there were several remarks and questions on number 5, let's see, A5 and A6. Does that, are rescues exempt from that or not?
We had decided that they were, didn't we? At our last meeting, our last workshop?
It has not been changed in here.
We discussed it, I think, we didn't
Yeah.
have
The state wording on that, they use the word nonprofit animal welfare organizations. And if we put that in our definitions of what that is,
yeah.
then we could make them exempt from that fee under A6, under section 18, if that's pleasing to the
What-
commission.
What
And that way,
about,
they don't have to pay.
what about number 5, zoning? Are they allowed in all the zones?
Talking about 200 foot from a residence, other than their
Must be
own.
located in accordance with the zoning regulations. Kennels are not allowed in R1 or R2, I don't believe. Not with that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Have to be a C1 or
So are rescues allowed in R1 and R2, R3, whatever we have.
Do we have any operating just in R1 and R2s?
I don't know. But they're not zoned to operate in there.
We do, who's operating there? What is this? Okay. We have breeders probably operating in residential areas, correct?
Not without not without, right. Laneburg. Well, there's Lindbergh.
I said Lindbergh Lane.
One has an N and one has an M, and then one's on one north side of town and one's on the west side of town.
So we have some that were variance in years ago.
So if another rescue comes up in R1, is it going to be allowed? Do they have to follow zoning? What about the one that's there that's not following zoning?
Do they know that they're not?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, typically people just operating out of their homes that are either voluntary to foster or temporary situations, but they don't have like an actual facility set up. There's nowhere in Mason that's an actual rescue facility.
But we're classifying them as a rescue facility as far as the benefits are concerned.
We have numbers on animals. Animals, but, so do they follow the?
Excuse me.
Qualified, like nonprofit.
Okay, so
I guess some of those questions were referring to
then they're not zoned in there, so we need to either zone them in.
But I don't, are you talking about the kennel?
No, I'm talking about rescues.
Buddy's Rescue.
Rescue is in R1. There's nothing in R1 that says you can have a rescue.
There's nothing that says you can't.
Yeah, but that, I think this is just referring on section 18, just referring to kennels.
Yeah, and nobody has kennels.
And then on our, in sections 1 through, I can't remember, 1 through.
It's under, okay, so these are only for kennels, not okay.
And if that's the case, we need to knock off rescue above. on
Yeah,
the main
the whole
title of-
section
of
includes
section
breeders
18.
and rescue organizations. That's the only reason
Yeah.
we need to clean this up. I'm not saying get rid of them, I'm saying
Okay.
this is a
So
mess.
what about the kennels? Do we want to restrict them as well?
They are restricted. The problem is.
By
this
the zoning
includes
ordinance?
In R1s and R2s.
But we have some operating,
Not kennel. Rescue.
if you go by the number of animals, they're a kennel. Because we know we have breeders here that's got more than 6 in their home right now.
And this says 4. Yep.
No.
This says, this,
Dogs. They're a kennel.
No, he's talking about other locations, other questionable areas.
I think Nancy's right, because applications for kennel permits, number of, are A, it says a person or group may apply for a permit to own, harbor, or keep more than 4 dogs, or more than 4 cats, or a combination thereof. And that would include the rescue, like Commissioner Smith said.
Eliminate rescue totally from this if we want to, if it's your pleasure. We can take it off the title. We can put it as an exception. Everybody fairly well agree with that? For rescue organizations, that we will write in an exception for those in this paragraph and take them off, well, take them off
Okay.
the title, actually, if that's agreeable. Because we want to encourage rescue organizations.
Right. But do
And
we
if we need to
want,
address it in zoning, we can.
Or
do
maybe
we want to encourage them in
Or one.
two to have, okay, this says a group may apply for a permit to have or harbor or keep more than 4 dogs or cats or their combination. Okay, so the rescue falls under that. They're going to have more than 4.
But if they're an exception, and we have to highly define nonprofit animal welfare organizations, they have to be a 501c. So we don't want someone just coming up and saying, okay, I want to set up my rescue organization. They don't go through the whole process to do it properly and meet the state mandate on it, then they're not a rescue organization.
So do we want to just do another bullet under 6, do number 7, and then exempt our local 501c rescue organizations?
That'd be my recommendation as a whole. But we got to define them in the definition, make sure they meet that qualification.
Right.
Like
But at
Buddy's
least-
is and.
Yeah, but at least we have it listed here, and it covers them under the kennel where we exempt their fee.
We're going to exempt them as a whole.
But the question is, do you want to exempt them in R1 and R2?
And we're not talking about the ones that exist now. We're talking to regulate what can come in the future. And do you really not want some control over how many rescue organizations you allow in R1 and R2?
Well, this is for an application though, and if we were to strike out and rescue organizations, and then in A, at the end of it, put your exemption of rescue organization, that would give, they've got to apply for a permit, which we would have to decide at that point whether or not we accepted that application.
Right. I think they still need the permit. I think they were asking to not have to pay the
Right,
$250 fee.
The exemption of the fee. I agree, Paul, that they do have to, that's why he said, put how they qualify, because they will have to prove or bring those qualifications in when they apply for that permit. And the city will grant them a permit, but they have to prove that they're the 501c and that they're in the correct zoning.
That's grandfather and Buddy's, right?
Well,
Right.
no, I think what's in question is not the permit and all the regulations
Yeah.
before that. They are all okay with that. Okay. And then number 6, they're okay if we just waive the fee. It's number 5 is the question. Allowing them in the requirement is kennels must be located. I think we need to take that out of the requirements, move 6 up to 5, waive the fee in those 6. They still have to have a permit, and they have to meet those all except for 5. 5, we need as a separate statement that all kennels are, these have to follow zoning, and we need to say that animal rescues can be located with, give them a variance to be located in R1 and R2. So they have to get a variance to do that. That way,
Do we have that in the zoning ordinance?
they're,
That hasn't been addressed in the zoning ordinance?
no, because it's addressed right here. They can't do it. They have to follow the zoning ordinance, and the zoning ordinance says you can't have them in those areas.
Well, I would think that when they go and apply for the permit, the zoning ordinance should, well, I guess you would have to include it in here then, so they know that that's what we're going by, is the zoning ordinance, that they're not allowed in those R1 and R2.
Okay, so zoning ordinance, go ahead, Patty.
So my concern is if you list that rescues have to get a variance to be in a R1 or R2, Well, to apply for a variance or to receive a variance, it has to be
Hardship.
hardship, extenuating circumstances. So they don't have a hardship, other than they just want to operate. So y'all would have voted, because there is no hardship,
Okay, maybe we're doing the wrong,
to deny the
It's-
variance.
Right.
So a variance is not the way to go on this.
what about,
Yeah, I don't think a
Plus,
variance.
you don't have to be, as somebody stated, you don't have to be a 501c3. You don't have to have nonprofit status to operate as a rescue.
No, but we could require them to have that for them to be exempt from 5 and 6 here. That's what we're trying to decide, yeah, I agree.
what about a conditional use instead of a variance? Maybe I used the wrong term.
But isn't 5 just, it doesn't say rescue, I mean,
Yeah, it just says kennel.
it just
Says
says
kennel.
Yeah.
we don't want the kennels in our
And they're grouped together there, so. we would
That's
leave
what I
that-
was saying, if we strike that rescue organizations from the main title, and then under A, put the exemptions of rescue organizations, okay? Then when you come up here and it says the kennel must be done, then rescue
Well,
organization would
This
not be
is an
applicable.
application for a kennel permit. It says, and that everybody agrees they should apply for a permit.
I don't think we
So the
want,
name of the permit is
we
kennel
want them to
permit.
fill out an application. I mean, I'm in favor of exempting them from the $250. Because we need to have record of them, we need.
I think,
to be able to
I
inspect
think
them, whatever.
everybody is in
That-
favor of
everybody's
putting
in
that.
agreement with that.
It's number 5, and maybe
So
it's
basically,
application,
Do you want a
kennel
rescue
permits.
set up next to your house? Somebody buys a house next to you, and they say, hey, I'm gonna do a 501c3, and I'm gonna rescue dogs. As a homeowner, do you want that next to you?
Probably not.
That's the question. Do you want to allow it in R1, R2?
That's what I was saying. William, you had something to say. Can you come up to the mic and speak? First, oh.
There you go. William,
well, it doesn't record.
Okay? If I was a multimillionaire, I don't have to be nonprofit to be a rescuer. So you can't just put the 501c in as a nonprofit. You have to put animal rescue.
Oh, absolutely. There's a
You understand
definition.
where I'm getting at there?
Yeah.
So, because if you get somebody comes in here with lots of money, they want to open up a rescue, you're going to tell them no? Because I know there's lots of people out there that do it.
Yeah.
That was my, and I agree with what he said about, I don't want it next door to me. I don't hear dogs barking all the time, and they're gonna do it if you've got a rescue.
I agree.
My suggestion is, I think we need to remove rescue organizations out of section 18, and the P and Z, when they meet next, March 5th or whatever it is, that they revamp a section specifically for rescues.
I totally agree.
Okay, so if we build that, do we want to have them in an R1 or R2? No?
No, that's what the zoning will address in the zoning ordinance.
So we have to figure out how to grandfather in buddies.
I think that's what, I think. they're gonna
I
have to
would
get
think
grandfathered.
that conditional use, I've said variance, I probably used the wrong language. A conditional use permit where they can use that conditionally for a certain, as long as they stay in business. Now, when they close, they stop rescuing, they sell the house, they move on. If somebody else wants to do it in the same location, they reapply for a conditional use at
She's
that
got
point.
All right, y'all don't know a lot of this, but John, maybe he can answer. Who did we sell the 5 acres to out there? Which organization?
Second chance
Okay. They have 5 acres, Second Chance has 5 acres out there to build a shelter, and they haven't done it in
at the industrial.
8 or 9 years. It's just sitting there. and they had a 2-year option to do it, and hadn't done nothing with it. So, I mean, there's a place for it to be done for as far as a rescue shelter being built. Just something to think about, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
Thank you, William.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Will.
Okay, are y'all in favor? We'll try to rewrite that as a separate section, just for rescue organizations. We'll try to define it, and then try to get the attorneys to approve it, and make sure that we're legal. And then we'll look at that conditional use permit to get buddies in the door. And then it'll be a one-time deal. Once it expires, he sells it or whatever. He can't
Well, also
rebuild there.
new ones. I mean, there may be, if they're only gonna do kittens and cats, that's a little different inside their enclosure. If you're gonna do rescue dogs, that you're gonna have kennels in the backyard.
But doing the variance, the conditional use permit, you have a chance to deny it, so that way.
And put the conditions in there.
Yeah.
So would y'all make Betty's apply for a conditional use permit, or would they be
Pro-
grandfathered in since they're already in operation?
I would think that some, if they would,
Yeah, they're exempt from the fee anyway, might as well, let them go through the process to do a conditional use permit.
Existing as of whatever date this is, that's.
Right.
That's all.
that they,
No more new ones in R1.
Yeah.
Ask the attorney about it, just to make sure
yeah,
that we're legal on it.
because
Yeah.
Because we can exempt the fee for them.
the point
And
is
just go through the
not
process.
to get rid of them,
Right.
but to protect what could happen in the future.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody coming in next door to me with a whole bunch of dogs and cats as a rescue that they're not taken care of. And,
Okay, so if we just look at 18 as a kennel permit for breeders?
let's let P and Z rewrite it.
I'm
Thank
sorry?
you.
Let's let P and Z rewrite it.
Yes.
We may have section A for
Yeah. 'cause there
breeders
is a
and
B,
section
yeah,
B for the other.
Yeah.
Just give us a chance.
Well, do we,
Okay, we're going to give P and Z a chance, Mary.
Yeah. We're going to give them a chance to
Yes.
rewrite it and revisit.
the only downside of that is that we're going to have to wait for them to have another meeting. They'll write it, and then we'll have to get it for the attorney. And so we'll burn 2 months pretty fast.
March the 5th, we have our meeting scheduled. At that point, it will be
But y'all will
rewritten.
write it then we'll have to get to the attorney.
And
we'll
it
have to
can
come
go
back to us.
directly to the attorney before y'all's April meeting.
So we're going to be in the summer before we put this
April or
to bed.
May. April or May.
Okay.
April or May. We're work fast.
What's the hurry, though?
I know.
What's the hurry?
It's not like we've been in a
I'm sorry?
major
What's the
hurry
hurry?
over the last 10 years.
What's your hurry?
Well,
Wait.
I didn't want to take 12 months.
Oh, no, it won't be 12 months.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, it was another month.
Okay, since we're not in a hurry, let's go to section 19,
It bit you.
tampering with animal control facility.
Yeah.
Problem.
There's a legal note on
21, CT
on
21.
page 48 at the bottom.
Anybody have any problem with 19?
Nope, I'm good with it.
Okay, 20?
The attorney stated paying the citation is equivalent to a conviction of the Class C offense, and the city may not require this by ordinance. And that would be under, BC, where she scratched out.
Yeah, I think we've got to go with what she says there probably.
Yep.
Just a grammatical, I mean. Ashley, do you have any problem with that if we just remove that?
okay.
Okay.
Under 21, Mayor, these are all the new fees. This would go under the new ordinance, right? Okay.
So anybody have any problems with the 21 or 22?
No.
I'd like to see 22, the not spayed or neutered, go up to 25.
What is on our ordinance now?
We don't have that.
Yeah, we did, we passed, did we not?
Yeah, I thought we did. I thought,
It says if they're spayed or neutered, it's $5, if they're not, it's 20.
yeah.
Is that on our ordinance now?
No.
That's what yeah, I'd like to see go up to 25.
Are the registration fee in the insurance you said?
Yeah, it's $3 for 3 years.
Yeah, that's all it says. It doesn't say anything about unspayed or.
Right.
Yeah, but when we redid all those fees. But we're changing that to annual permits too. That's changing in here. So what's the pleasure of the commission? $20, $25, and then we'll make sure it's effective? Not in there? Okay. Comments on fee? 25?
25.
Everybody in favor? Okay, we'll put 25 on there. The non-neutered or spayed animals.
Okay, what dangerous animals are we registering if we're not allowing any dangerous animals?
I'm sorry?
We've got a whole section of saying that we can't have dangerous animals,
Yeah.
but now we're charging $50 for a dangerous animal.
For registration.
They have to do an annual registration, $50 every year, once they're declared.
But you
dangerous.
can't have them. We can't, the ordinance says you can't have
You
them.
can say that you can't have them, it just specifies what it is.
But you can have them, but you have to have insurance and you have to do a lot of things that you have to do, so $50 is supposed to straight to go.
I thought it said you could not have about
There-
14 snakes.
You can have a dangerous dog, though.
Is that what?
You can have a dog that's deemed
That's
dangerous.
but classified as
Yeah,
dangerous.
and that's
Okay,
what
yeah.
that,
I'm with you.
There were some other comments on the comment forms. I think most of them have been addressed. The feral cats, the enforcement issues, citation issues, cost of enforcement, do the violations cover the cost? I think pretty much this has been worked into what we've discussed. I just want to reiterate what people had complained about. They want to work with legitimate nonprofit to have more rescues, need volunteers to get involved. Okay, that's pretty much not
They didn't
the city's
volunteer,
job.
did they?
Yeah, no, they didn't. The dumpster cover, the question of dead animal pickup, I don't think that was addressed, but
I noticed that, I don't, actually, Johnny pick them up when they get notified, I mean,
so, like I said, this is just what the
right,
comments said. I don't want anybody to, city has a big city mentality that they passed all this without notifying the public. Okay, we know the P and Z has been working on it over 2 years. We've had 14 meetings now, so that's pretty much. The only other thing is the question of, is there some way that, okay, we have the rule about animals cannot be tied to meters or impede the workers from reading meters. There are still animals that are, but there's nothing in there. Is there some way or idea on if they are impeding the meter reader, that they can be filed against as having a vicious animal? Vicious animals are not included. If they attack somebody on their private property, then they're not considered vicious, but if they're on their private property and they attack, if they're impeding a city worker from doing his job, is there some legal way that those dogs can be filed against? A judge would have to hear the case, I'm sure, to declare them as vicious animals. But city workers are being run off and/or bitten, are not safe. I know, I read meters all over town at one time. I was the meter reader. And I know that there were several locations where there were dangerous animals. Knock on wood, I never got bit. But doesn't mean I wasn't chased and jumped in my little Jeep at the time. But our city workers need to be protected from animals, and if the rule is that they cannot impede them, then we need to put in the ordinance someplace that if they are impeding them, that a case could be filed to name that animal as a vicious animal.
John, you have a comment?
That's what I was gonna say, because we have meters a week for every time we read, I guess about 20, about 15 or 20 where we endanger our employees on trying to get in there to read the meter. And I know ordinance says we have the right to go look at that meter, but we can't get in there. And they do get in there and they're, David, pretty much. I mean, he knows because we've been feeding them. But we do everything we can to read it, but we have to come up with something that allows us to go read the meters or work on them when we're going and doing it.
Nancy, when we were looking at that together we found some rule somewhere that said that the homeowner has to supply a clear path to the meters.
And
Or
that-
move the meter, have the meter moved to a location where they're not.
It
having to
just
compete.
simply says they can't tie to those meters,
Right.
and they cannot impede the worker, so there is nothing
Yeah,
that
so
says they
what
have to have a
happens is-
path.
You go in the backyard and it's fenced in, and you have to get in that fence. Well, the people leave their dogs running around loose. So, I don't know how to address it or what we can do, but we can ask
The attorney
the
probably
attorney
will
on
have,
figuring out how to.
and if we can decide deeming that animal as a dangerous or vicious animal, whatever, require them at that point to provide a protected pathway to the meter or relocate the meter at the owner's expense. So that once it's found that it's consistently impedes the meter readers, then they have to either provide a secure path to the meter or relocate the meter. It's something needs to be done, because that was 20 years ago I read meters.
I don't think you can get in the backyard with a dog at all if you show up dressed like a meter reader, because they just somehow, that and a postman, you could be the nicest dog in the world and they'd go crazy on you.
Actually,
So let me
there's-
ask you this, John, if you can't get to a meter, which is, the city has a right to go read your meter. If you can't, can you just say, we are going to read it?
What we
We're
do is
doubling
we-
last month.
We get creative, so we have binoculars, we have everything, we call the owner, yeah.
That's, we should be able,
Yeah, okay.
I was gonna say, because I don't know that would go under the animal control ordinance, because I
Well,
think we do, that's what I thought too.
unless we can deem it as a dangerous. I've walked on people's property and the dog comes out of nowhere. And it's on their private property and it's not fenced in, but it's on their private property.
Okay, Ashley?
I'm just saying, I don't understand how we can deem a dog dangerous when it's fenced in on its property where it's supposed to be, because that's what our rules say. Your dog can't run at large. It's required to be within your property. So if the property
not supposed to impede the meter reader. So it's not where it's
I'm not
supposed to be.
disagreeing with you, I'm not saying that
Right.
we shouldn't be able to read meters, because we should, but on the
Well,
other side,
that's
the dog
why-
isn't necessarily dangerous for being where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, but something needs to be done, so they stop. But a rule is made where they either have to, if they impede, or if we can't read it for so many times, then they are required to relocate it or or develop direct access to it.
We'll discuss that with the attorney also and see if this one here has any thoughts, ideals. But if we've already got something on the books and it's a continual problem, we ought to be writing a citation every
They do,
Every
but
time
it
we can't get
doesn't
there.
heal the bite.
I'm sorry?
It doesn't heal the bite. It doesn't stop them from every month paying their fee. They don't care.
No.
Yeah,
I agree, I think we need to defer to an attorney.
right.
We'll see where we're at there.
Anyway, that's
Our meter is
all.
very accessible, but the neighbor's dog comes across. Okay, who's responsible for that one?
Then it's not on its
Yeah.
own property.
Yep.
Then it's not on its own property.
Anything else we want to discuss on this? We've still got a lot of research to do.
Yeah, I want to make a point real quick. In reading this input that we got from the citizens, I was really impressed. We got quite a few, which was awesome. And I want to read one of them that has a point that I feel strongly about also. She says, "It might be helpful to begin the animal ordinances by stating their purpose. For example, I mentioned at the recent workshop, the large animal ordinance strike a balance between those who keep livestock and those who do not." Well, and then a purpose, and then definitions, which we do. And then there was another one who I agreed with also, that we should also put in there our animal control officers, and I think we already went over that on the beginning, their credentials.
Yes, we noted that, I think, at the very beginning.
Anna, at our meeting, the P and Z meeting, we discussed sections 1 through 12, and a lot of those changes have been made according to P and Z.
Good.
And they haven't been presented. That's why I didn't say any of the
Okay.
others, 1 through 12.
Awesome.
So we'll
Sorry.
try to schedule another meeting somewhere towards the first or middle of next month for another workshop. And we have to be after theirs. Y'all do the 15th? Yeah, okay. Sometime after that, and we will notify y'all. Any other comments, discussion? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion, we adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn, need a second. Robert? Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand.